Alrighty. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this year's Homecoming Court interest meeting. We are so glad everyone could make it to this event. My name is Kevin Costello, and I am the Student and Alumni Engagement Coordinator here with the FSU Alumni Association. Here with me today is Katie Hines, the President of the Student Alumni Association. Hi, Katie.
Hi, y'all. Welcome to the intro meeting. Tonight, we're going to start off by reviewing the application process and timeline, and then we're going to introduce our special guests that are here with us this evening, Zazie Lenore, Derek Scott II, and Emily Gallant. We're going to ask our special guests a few questions about their experiences, and then we're going to open the discussion to any questions y'all might have. So if you have any questions throughout this presentation, go ahead and type them in the question and answer box down at the bottom. Awesome. Well, to get us started, we're going to start and look at where you can find the application. So I hope y'all can see the screen, but that's the FSU Alumni Association website. So if you hover over the Students tab on there, you can see two important links. The first one is where the arrow is pointing, and that's the link to the application itself. So y'all can view that, look at the application, kind of see what it's asking for you. And then the one underneath that is the policies and procedures document for this year's Homecoming Court. So you can find application requirements, important dates, campaigning policies, all that good stuff. So that's on the website there. And then we'll go on to the actual application requirements. So all applicants have to have a minimum GPA of 3.0 by the end of summer 2022 semester. And then all undergraduate applicants must have or registered to complete 90 credit hours. Graduate students that want to apply have to be registered or completed at least 18 credit hours. And then you have to be enrolled in at least 9 credit hours during the fall 2022 semester. And then everyone has to have completed at least one academic year at FSU. So those are the requirements. And then on the application itself, it's going to ask you some information. You'll have to provide contact information, demographics, your current academic standing. And then it also consists of 6 questions pertaining to your contributions and experiences during your time here at Florida State. You'll be asked to upload a copy of your most current resume and a letter of recommendation from FSU faculty, staff, or a student supervisor member. All right, here are some important dates for homecoming, a little timeline. So the application is currently live. It closes August 1st at 5 p.m. And then on July 21st, we'll be hosting a resume review virtual workshop on Zoom exclusively for our Homecoming Court applicants. This is a great resource for you guys in case you want fresh eyes on your resume before submitting your application. So for those interested, Kevin just dropped the link in the chat, and then make sure to copy and paste that now so y'all don't lose that. So that'll be very important. And then August 1st, when the application closes, the Student Conduct Office will be completing all conduct checks. This is just to ensure that you guys are in good academic standing, have no current conduct record, and no outstanding outcomes with the Department of Student Conduct and Community Standards. During this time, the registrar's office will verify that you've met those academic requirements and that you're eligible to participate. And then also during these 2 weeks, we'll be reviewing all the applications, and it'll undergo the initial review process by the selection committee. After that, we're going to invite the top scoring 15 chief candidates and 15 princess candidates to an interview. An email confirmation will be sent either way if you're invited to interview or not, so you will not be left hanging. These interviews will be held virtually from August 12th to August 26th. And then on August 26th, we'll announce the Homecoming Court on the Student Alumni Association's social media accounts. If you were selected for court, make sure to hold August 31st as a date that you'll be taking your headshots, just giving that out in advance. And then fast forwarding to the end of September during homecoming week, that will be the 28th will be the day of voting from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then during homecoming week, there'll be something going on every day for those that are elected to court. The Friday of homecoming week on September 30th, we'll have our traditional parade, the Alumni Awards Gala, and Homecoming Live, where the 2022 Chief and Princess will be announced. And then, of course, we'll end homecoming week with the October 1st football game against Wake Forest. and the homecoming court will be presented on the field at halftime as in tradition. All right, so now I would love to introduce our guest speakers for the evening. Joining us is Dawsey Lenore, Chair of the FSU Alumni Association National Board of Directors and 2001 Homecoming Princess. Derek Scott, President of the Young Alumni Network and our 2015 Homecoming Chief. And Emily Gallant, our 2017 Homecoming Princess. So welcome, panelists.
Hello. Sorry, I just walked through a windstorm if my hair is out of place.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
All right, so Dawsey, do you want to start us and tell us about yourself and your homecoming court experience?
Wow, it was so long ago. What year is this? This is 2022. So 21 years ago is when I went through this process. It was fall of 2001. I certainly remember the application, and I also remember the interview. Sorry, excuse me. And I remember there being a lot of people in my interview, and distinctly remembering that the guy to the right of me was a representative from Birdine's, if y'all remember Birdine's department store. And he asked me where I got my suit from, and I said, Birdine's, and he goes, I like that, because he had an affiliation with Birdine's. So that kind of broke the ice. So the interview went well. And then I found out that I made the court because there was a list posted over at the stadium. So I ran over one evening and found out, it's like cheerleading, you know, did you make the squad? And it kind of went from there. I remember going to the Jacksonville Seminole Club and meeting with them. I remember powwow at the Moon, if that's still how it's done. Maybe I'm dating myself here. And then the announcement, which was fun because the princess from the year before was also a good friend of mine and a garnet and gold girl, and she was able to give me her crown. So that was neat. So those are my most memorable moments from homecoming. And I being from South Carolina, I do remember having found out, needing clothes. So I'm from Rock Hill, South Carolina, home of Chris Hope, if y'all remember our championship team where we beat Virginia Tech and Michael Vick back in the Sugar Bowl in 2000. But my grandmother and my great aunt drove down to Greenville because we went up to the Clemson game, took me to the mall, bought me big poofy dresses, and then I carried them all into the game. So I kind of looked crazy with bags of shoes and dresses and in a suit from Ann Taylor. But I walked right in proudly and carried my stuff back to Tallahassee and, you know, utilized it during homecoming week. But it was an awesome experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Derek, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your experience on homecoming court?
Not a problem. First off, I want to apologize. I will not be on camera because this laptop camera is broken. But a little bit about myself. Derek Scott II, originally from Jacksonville, Florida, just like Emily there. But let's see, I was at Florida State's campus 2012 until 2016. As mentioned previously, I am the 2015 homecoming chief. I currently reside in Atlanta, Georgia, serve as the president for the Young Alumni Network, and work for Deloitte & Touche inside of consulting. So that's all like the little cool fun facts, right? But my experience, I'll say homecoming court was a blur, to just be honest. It was very exciting. It was a lot of, I won't say stress, but it was almost like, how do I take all this in, right? Because you are one of, and correct me if I'm wrong, you know, Katie or Kevin, but you're one of 8, right? 4 men, 4 women, like on this court, and you're representing Florida State University, right? Like
it's pretty much the same way, except it is 6 king and 6 princess.
Perfect.
Or chief and princess, should I say.
No problem, no problem. So regardless, right? So if, let's just say 100 and 200, however many people apply, you're one of 6. For the men, you're one of 6 for the women. And so during this whole time where you're trying to wrap your head around it, how did I even make it this far? You're also going around to, right, as Dawsey mentioned, maybe visiting different Seminole clubs, or you're going to the baseball game and getting revealed, to spirit night, what have you. So really my one advice that Asha Brewer, a former princess, gave me during court was make sure you just take it in. Take a moment to just breathe and realize that you're on court. It isn't so much about winning chief, winning princess, but rather that you were selected. In I guess an analogy be you were Grammy nominated, right? You may not won the Grammy, but you got nominated. And so that in of itself is a tip to the cap of all the great work that you had done into that moment. I guess another quick 30 seconds, kind of thinking about my overall experience. In 2010, I snuck into a culinary arts class because I had a crush on a girl. The teacher of that culinary arts class was actually a homecoming princess from Florida State University. She had her, crown and let's say regalia inside of the class, kind of hanging up as a shrine. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go to Florida State. She was like, hey, well, I was princess back in the day. And I was like, well, I'll be chief one day. That was 2010. 5 years later, I became, chief. And she came to my crowning at powwow. So it was for me, being on court wasn't about winning per se. It was about showing first generation students that they could do it. It was about showing people from Jacksonville that they could do it. And all those, maybe let's say people outside of the Florida State community, specifically Tallahassee, high school students, middle school students that may or may not have looked like me, who once doubted, can I do something as cool as being chief or princess at Florida State? Yeah, you can. You just have to have a good heart, good work ethic, and make an impact while you're there. So that's a little bit of my story.
Cool.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Emily, could you share a little bit about yourself and your experience on the court?
Of course. Hi, guys. So my name is Emily. I was on campus from 2014 to 2018. So I was the 2017 Homecoming Princess. And some of my involvement on campus was in student government. Derek and I were on campus at the same time. So we overlapped some there in various organizations. Student housing, I was an RA in DeGraff. And then I was also president of my Greek life. So Kappa Alpha Theta was my sorority, was president for a year, which was a great experience, but they were all really diverse experiences. And when I think about homecoming, it was such a cherry on top of a phenomenal 4 years. It's just the best way I can describe it, because the work was already done. And if you're on this call and if you're applying, you have made significant impacts to campus, the people, the organizations that you're a part of. And so I really echo what Derek said. It's not necessarily about winning or even about being selected. Obviously, it is about being selected, but your experience and your contributions to campus speak volumes. And it was just the best reward. And to get to that finish line right before graduation and say, I made it through this interview process. I had such an impact on all these people on campus who then in turn had an impact on me. To be able to take that and have a reward as great as homecoming, it was just the best experience. And I had someone similarly tell me to take it in because it happens really quickly. I mean, and you guys especially, your homecoming was what, end of September? Is that what it was? September 28th? That's quick. You guys, the applications, you have to submit your applications before you even step back on campus for classes. So I remember the process so vividly. I remember finding out when I was selected for court, I was walking through the rotators at Stroh's and I screamed. And it was just the coolest feeling in the world. So I'm like, how did I get selected? And then to be voted as princess was just something you will truly never forget. And was just such an incredible experience. So, and on top of that, the leadership opportunities and the things that you guys are doing on campus now to get you to that point speak volumes in life. So I'm 4 years out of school. I've been with Mars Wrigley for the last 4 years. Brands you would know as M&M, Snickers, Twix. And I'm on the managing team for the Publix and Winn-Dixie accounts that you guys know very well. So buy your M&Ms at Publix. But it's great. And I'm able to translate those leadership skills into my professional life. And I always say that Florida State taught me so much, but it's what I learned outside of the classroom. It's the things that got me to the homecoming stage that really were what I took away from Florida State and took away from my 4 years of school. And you guys are in such a special pool of people that have the opportunity to make impacts on campus and get to this point. And so it's just the best experience. That's all I can say about it.
Wow, thank you all so much. It's so great to have you guys here. So we'd love to ask you guys a few more questions, and we encourage y'all to keep sending questions in that Q&A box down at the bottom. But going back to you, Dazi, on behalf of everyone in attendance, could you please give us one tip for the application and interview process that you have?
Sorry, I was trying to get off mute. I'm at my sorority's national convention and it's kind of loud, so just bear with me. The one tip that I would give would be to make sure that you give very thoughtful answers on your application. I remember spending a lot of time trying to craft the right response, and having participated in the actual interview process on the other side, I know that attention is paid to those responses that you give. So I would take your time and put a lot of effort into what they're asking, and give really good, solid answers, because they don't get very much time with you in the interview. And years ago, if my memory serves me correctly now this was a long, long time ago, I believe that they interviewed everybody. Now, that's obviously not the case anymore. So they're only going to have the benefit of what you put on paper. So make sure that you do a good job in that regard, and that will translate into getting one of those 15, I think you said, interview spots.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Going back to you, Derek, what was the biggest and lasting impact that your experience on court has had on you?
That's not fair. It's too many, to be honest with you. But I'll honestly say it's the friendships I made with the people who were on court. It really sounds cheesy, but like my princess, who I didn't know was going to be my princess at the time, i.e. the person who was selected as homecoming princess, like she just gave me a full itinerary to go to Hawaii. She was stationed in Hawaii after graduating, serving as a nurse in the military over there, and was like, hey, you and your girlfriend can go over here, and I'll draft up the whole thing. You can even stay with my parents who are out there, right? That's one. Another friend who served on the court, his name is Jock. Jock and I opened up a scholarship together last year in the name of care. And we thought about, how close we were before court, but how close we got during court. And we were just talking about, the purpose of collaboration. So I'll say the friendships definitely within those weeks leading up to the actual homecoming itself were long lasting. But if I could cheat and give you one more, I would say I think the impact or the ripple effect that it gave for like mentees and or people who were just on campus that knew me afterwards. So I speak back to homecoming and homecoming court being bigger than you. You may not necessarily think you're directly impacting someone, or you may think that your quote unquote impact is too small. But if you apply, if you are selected to serve on court, just by being yourself, you then in turn influence someone else to dream bigger, to believe that they could do it. So I think those two things will probably be my greatest thing looking back, right?
Amazing. Thank you so much. Emily, what is one thing you encountered during your time on court that you didn't expect going in?
So Derek kind of stole my answer. But it truly, the people, I did not expect to get as close to the people on homecoming court that I did. And so, a lot of them you will know, right? If you're, some of you are in your same circles and in your same organizations that overlap with lots of people, but some you don't know. Like my chief, I had never met before, and he was just fantastic. And we had the greatest time together. We were going out to happy hours, like our whole court was going out to happy hours together at MADSO and doing karaoke night during homecoming week on that Monday night. I don't know if it's still Monday night, but we just had the best time. And on top of that, on the other flip side, the network that you create. So is it Phil Barco? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Correct.
he has a Facebook page for all of the previous chief and princesses, and he wishes all of us a happy birthday. And he always posts pictures of us, and he's so involved. And you meet all of this whole network of people that all had such a huge hand in the Florida State experience. And I truly didn't understand how big of a family homecoming is until afterwards, because I had my organizations on campus, I had my housing people, I had my student government people, I had my Greek life people, all massive networks. I made the most incredible friends that I still keep in touch with today through these organizations. I just didn't expect homecoming to be one of them because it's a little bit of a shorter time frame. But when you think about it, it's a group of very diverse individuals. You're going to have people that touch every area of campus on your court. They do that, for a reason, because there are so many great areas of campus. There's so many great areas on campus, but at the end of the day, you guys are all kind of very similar. You all have a massive heart for Florida State. You're incredibly involved on your campus or touch a specific area of campus. And so at the end of the day, we were kind of all really the same. So it was really cool.
That is
Great.
awesome. Thanks so much for sharing.
Of course.
We are going now to answer some questions that you have provided in the chat. Derek, I see that you raise your hand for answering one of them, so I'll repeat the question and then you can go ahead and answer it however you want. How did being on court influence the rest of your FSU career?
Okay, and I might have read it a little bit faster. So FSU career, I'll answer that. Also career. I'll go actual professional career first. I actually got a job through a connection that I made, let's say, while I was on court 1, but then 2, after being crowned chief, it was like almost re-solidified. Won't take you down that long story, but pretty much one guy who won homecoming chief a while back, we ran into each other in Atlanta. After, of course, I had already won. He met me during the court week before I was crowned chief. And I told him, hey, I'm in the job search, I'm looking. He was like, hey man, like, I remember meeting you. You were an outgoing guy. You were bubbly back then. You stayed true to yourself. Tell you what, I'll give you an interview, put in a great word from you. You're also Florida State based, blah, blah, blah. So definitely helped out my professional career a lot. But I'll say FSU career, for me, like going back, and it's going to sound like a broken record, it was always, how can I use this quote unquote position or title to make sure that I'm influencing in or speaking up for either marginalized communities, people who maybe don't have a voice, et cetera. So like, it allowed me to have a bigger voice or access maybe than I previously had. So there may have been, let's say racial injustice that happened, my senior year, and President Thrasher, former President Thrasher, tapped myself and a few other people, myself serving as a former member of court and then homecoming chief to, let's say, brainstorm or create a task force to combat an issue that was going on within Greek life, right? Outside of that, let's think about other FSU career opportunities. So if I wanted going into like that senior year, I oftentimes was called to speak, right? At GBMs, global meetings or general body meetings. I was called to speak at FAMU and speak on the behalf of Florida State as well, just based on some connections that I had there at TCC. So I think the simple answer is, once you're selected on court, or even if you do have the glorious opportunity of being selected as chief and or princess, you then become the ambassador, or one of the, let's say in this case, 12 ambassadors and or 2 primary ambassadors of Florida State University. And so I made sure that as much as I could, right, that I was trying to speak up, raise my hand, and make sure that people understood, hey, I was chief, I'm here to help. I want to make your experience at Florida State better. I want to make sure that this isn't just a crown that I'm wearing, but I'm actually an advocate for change on campus and even outside of campus in the Tallahassee community. So definitely impacts, but I'll be honest, whoever asked that question, it really depends on what you want to do with your court experience, with your court position, and or your chief or princess title. So really the power is yours. Sorry to ramble there. I love this stuff.
That was great. Now, thank you so much for giving us that insight. I have another question, and it's kind of for the group. We'll start with Dazi on it. What moment, or was there any one moment or a couple moments that stood out to you the most during your entire time on court?
Y'all have, I mean, you're having me draw back on a lot. Like, the parade was a lot of fun. And being with my partner, who others have spoken to this too, but JD Dowry is still a friend of mine and has served on the alumni board too. And actually, my chief, Dean Axius, also, I had the privilege of serving on the alumni board with him as well. So just a sidebar. But that was really memorable. Them calling my name was quite memorable, although it was a bit of a blur. And the game on Saturday, you know, just being acknowledged and, you know, crowned with the crown that the Seminoles actually hand beat for you, which I still have. All these years later, I still have it tucked away in a safe place. So the whole experience in of itself is just very, very special and memorable in its entirety. But when they actually call your name, it just turns into a whole different type of special moment. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. That was great. Emily?
So I would say, I was going to say the parade, but I'll touch on walking down the field. Also, if you do have, as Derek said, the glorious opportunity to be selected, you get to come back the next year and walk down the field a second time as the reigning chief and princess. And so walking down the first time, and I think this goes for anyone that was on court, because we're all so close and we all chatted afterwards and we all talked about it. It is the most incredible feeling. There's a stadium of how many thousands of tens of thousands of people, the marching chiefs in between you with those, you know, massive instruments that are just resounding in your ear, and you're walking down with your partner and these, you know, there are 11 other people. And it is truly the most humbling and wonderful experience that I have ever experienced. I remember walking off and my parents were there and I was like, I don't know if my wedding will top this day, because it was so fantastic to think about your 4 years and, you know, you graduating in 6 months, and again, the legacy and the impact that you had on other people and that they had on you, and the things that you were going to take through life. That walking down that field is by far the most memorable piece of homecoming, for sure.
Awesome. Derek?
They definitely took two really good examples, homecoming and the field. Nothing like the field yet. It's way too many cameras. I don't know, I was lost. But I'll say for me, Spirit Night was I don't know if that still happens, but I really enjoyed Spirit Night or Spirit Fest. I can't really remember the actual name, but like for me, I had never gone. I had never been in my entire, let's say, undergrad experience. And so of course, like you're on the stage, they introduce you guys, right? They say, hey, here's your homecoming court. And so that felt great. But then to stay and kind of just like stay with my court members, watch the show and kind of get a different look. And it's almost like a representation of what homecoming is, right? So as Emily mentioned, you may see some people who are in similar circles, but then you're also introduced to different experiences, people from different backgrounds, different traditions, etc. And so for me, that honestly was probably the most fun. Second to that, also don't know if you guys do this anymore. We had like a homecoming, like almost like a music video that we were filming as a promotion. And that was just fun. Like it was incredibly fun. It was pretty much like a hype buildup of here's your homecoming court, here's who we are. And my class really bonded a lot during that process because you get to see everyone's true personality come out. And it sounds cheesy for the 15th time, but like you guys become friends, I promise you. You almost kind of forget that, quote unquote, this is a competition. And it's more so like, where have you been these first 3 years of my life? Like, why haven't we been hanging out previously? So those two are my favorite experiences.
We definitely did not have a video.
Yeah. I don't know if that was the first time it was done,
but we didn't have Facebook either.
There you go.
Awesome. Thank you.
I don't think we did a video.
Katie, I got a question from the audience. For those on the other side of the application process, what are some of the things that stand out in the applications that are reviewed?
Absolutely. So I don't think there's just one magical thing you can put on your resume or your application that is going to be like the guarantee. Honestly, just write from the heart. I know that sounds like super cheesy, but just like, write what you feel for those questions and what you truly believe. And when you come into your interview, like just show that FSU spirit that you have. Just be yourself. It's the personality that, really stands out. Because after a while, answers start to recycle, and it's just the way that you talk behind your answer and how you feel about it that I think really kind of stands out, basically. So, yeah.
Cool. For the next question, Katie, if you want to take the lead on this one, about the will the final applicants be notified of their results before it's announced on social media?
Yes, absolutely. We will either call or send an email to announce before we put it on social media.
What other, so for our panelists here, what are kind of on the flip side of that question, what is something to avoid in your expertise?
Avoid in like your application?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Or just throughout the entire process, not even necessarily for being elected, but just like as a person yourself.
You got it.
No, I was gonna buy you some time because
thanks.
Just something that just came to my mind just for the application. Like, don't list your resume. Like, don't. I was president of this. I led this. I did that. Your resume is gonna say that. As Dazi mentioned, as Emily mentioned, like your application question is supposed to show what your heart, truly had, like the love that you have for Florida State, maybe the diverse experiences that have set you up to be right on court, how you've shown strength, how you've shown skill, character, etc. So like, just don't stat stuff. Like, I think that's probably the biggest advice that I can give when it comes to the application. All right, over to you, Emily.
Perfect. So what I was going to say after that I was figuring out the words to say is, after you're selected onto court, and this again goes to prior, is really being yourself and not trying to be someone that you think is going to be selected or that you think is going to win, or stepping on your fellow court members or anyone else in order to win. It's truly about celebrating your time at Florida State and truly about celebrating homecoming. And so trying to act like, someone who wants to be selected, or you think they're going to select me because of A, B, and C. Really be authentic to who you are and authentic to the love that you have for Florida State and the drive for the leadership and the change that you've implemented on campus. So kind of piggybacked, but especially when you get into the court process.
I'll also kind of piggyback again, but last year, for context, I was director of Homecoming Parade Chief and Princess. So I sat in on the interviews, and we had one gentleman come in and he pulled something out of his pocket and he put on war paint. And I think that just like set off the interview so well. And it was like, wow, like, he has pride. He loves Florida State. And it started off fun too. And, made us all laugh. So it's, it's your personality. So
that's creative. And the interview is intimidating. I'll say that. It was, I think I was on a panel of 14. You're at this big long table, and granted yours are going to be virtual, so it's a little bit different, but it's that big table in the Alumni Association. There's like 13 people around it, and you walk in behind the other 3 people that just walked out, and you're like, wow, this is really intimidating. And so, really making sure that you bring your interview skills and you highlight yourself as best and authentically as possible is so important.
I think the last don't I have before we move on to the next question is, don't think that what you've done is too small or too little. That would be one. What if it means something to you, write about it or speak about it in your interview. I think the other don't view this as I swear, like behind the camera, like now is like being a chief. It sounds like how could you not? But don't view it as a competition, but more so as like as an honor. So don't come at it with a very competitive mindset. I'm better than these people, or this is the reason why I should be chosen over everyone else. It's just like, this is why it would be an honor. This is why I would be so humbly, honored to even be selected for court. Like kind of just shift your lens and think about it like that, almost like applying to Florida State all over again.
Yeah,
Bringing that love to the interview and your application.
I love that, Derek.
We just had another question roll in. So Emily or Derek, whoever wants to take the lead on this one first. Was the whole process after selection onto the court very hectic? And how many hours per week would you say you allocated to it?
That's a good question. Derek, do you want it or I can take it?
I'm thinking. So you go first. You're a little closer.
So yeah, right. So I would say it was probably a couple hours a week. The week of homecoming was definitely a lot because there was activities or events every single night. And then obviously leading into the week. So the week of homecoming, if you have like a lot of exams or something going on, really make sure you are prioritizing your time. But prior to that, it wasn't incredibly or overwhelmingly demanding for as much as I can remember, to the point where I wasn't able to get my studies done. But that week of homecoming is definitely a lot, but it is so much fun. Like I've said 100 times, but it's really just that 1 week is very time consuming.
Yeah, I would say ditto. Like if I think back, like prep, so you got your headshots, you got, I don't know if you still do it, but like a little small video, like, hey, I'm Derek Scott. Here are my areas of campus. This is why I applied to court, whatever the case may be. But it wasn't like demanding. I can't give you an hour, but I definitely remember I didn't feel like I was working a part-time job. It was very light, but as Emily mentioned, not to scare you, like during homecoming, of course, because you are one of 6 men and or women representing Florida State, like it's going to be a little bit more busier, but it's not going to be to the point where you're like, wow, I'm exhausted. What did I just do? I just pulled an all-nighter. It won't be that. It's just, probably a little bit more busy than you were in the leading up weeks, if that makes sense.
Thank you. I think unless anyone has any last minute questions about the for our special panelists here, we're going to move on to the application and the process questions. So the first one that we have, and thank you for whoever submitted this. I know it's been 30 minutes since you sent it. We got around to it. The question was, do we submit the letter of recommendation ourselves, or does the recommender submit it? So on the homecoming court application on the Qualtrics, one of the slides in it, you'll have a letter of recommendation slot that you can upload. So that is where it would be at. And then kind of piggybacking off one of those, or just more context with it, that letter of recommendation has to be from a Florida State University faculty or staff member, or it can be an RSO president or your supervisor within, as long as it's affiliated or they are affiliated with Florida State University, you are good to go. Katie, you got anything?
Let's see what other questions are in here. There's one that says, as a court member, do you attend all events or only the chief and princess? That's a really good question. As a court member, you attend everything during the week. So like everyone was saying, they got really close because you're doing all those events together. So the week of, you're going to, Spirit Night, you're going to Search for a Cause, you're going to Odds and Evens and everything. So you're together all the time. And then Chief and Princess is announced at Homecoming Live. And then even when you go on the field, you all go down the field. So everyone will get a chance to walk across that field. So definitely everyone together.
Alrighty. Another question that just came in, even if we have someone we want to run with, would we be paired with someone random? Yes, we have a random process that you will be selected with. So yes. Katie, a question for you. What was your favorite part of working so closely with the court last year?
I mean, I know everyone said it before, so I sound like a broken record, but those friendships, y'all, like they became my best friends. Like 3 days ago, I helped one of them move out of their apartment. Like it's just those friendships you make are just insane. Like I would never, like if you told me a year ago what I was doing like right now, like and who I'd be friends with, I wouldn't believe you. And so yeah, those friendships. I mean, going to the events with them as well is so fun too. Like at odds and evens last year, like I was bungee jumping with them. Like it was just the experiences you have are just unreal. You won't experience it anywhere else.
That gives me a good question for Emily and Derek. Once again, kind of piggybacking off that, do you still, how many 5 years ish later, what are your connections still with those on court with you?
I'll let Emily go first, 'cause I think I touched on it already.
Okay.
Yeah, you did it. And it's not necessarily, oh, does my video turn off? It did. I wouldn't say it's even necessarily about the people that were on court with me. We stay connected. Like Deontay, who is my homecoming chief, he'll text me. He started a business and he was asking about color schemes and different things that he was doing. And so we stay connected. We're giving each other advice. And then on top of that, the homecoming court page, I've had multiple conversations with previous chief or princesses that have lived in Jacksonville, or when I moved to Atlanta, the alumni groups, and then the group there as well. I reached out about, places to live, areas of town, the FSU Alumni Association group that they do have in Atlanta, which is a great one if any of you end up in Atlanta. And I'm sure Derek is fully involved with. So it's just, it's a really great, it's another list to add to the list of networking opportunities, and who knows what future doors might open because of it. And I know Derek's already had quite a few as a result of his reign.
Yeah, definitely still involved with them. Definitely friends with the men and women that I served on court with, not just my princess. I mean, even the person who I was paired up with, Jennifer. We have conversations all the time. Actually, we hung out, I think last homecoming, if I'm not mistaken. I go to Tallahassee way too much now, serving as a president with the Young Alumni Network. But regardless, I still stay in contact with them. Those, as everyone has said, those individuals will remain friends with you if you put in the effort while on court. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You come in, you meet diverse people, and you leave with pretty tight connections.
Yeah, it's great. And everyone's also doing really cool things out of school. Like Layla, who was on my court, is just a powerhouse of a woman. She's fantastic. She's working for Amazon and doing all these things outside of her role to encourage women leadership. And then John, who was also on my court, he's researching type 2 diabetes and is making great headwinds there. And so everyone is thriving in their own worlds, and we still get to circle back at times and check in on each other and be a resource for each other. So it's really great.
Awesome. We just had another question come in. Do you have to be a SAA member to apply?
I would love
If
to answer
so,
that if I can. So yes and no. So to submit your application right now, like that's okay. But to participate in court, you do have to be an SAA member.
Not anymore. Sorry, we changed that for this year.
Oh, well, just kidding, y'all. Never mind. But either way, y'all should become an SAA member because it's literally the best thing out there. So I'm a little biased, but I do think y'all should become an SAA member. But apparently you do. So yes, get your memberships and apply.
And for part 2 of that, the applications right now are open. If you joined late and missed it, if you go to the FSU alumni account, or the website, should I say, on the students tab, if you hover over that, there will be the 4th and 5th tab that you'll see. The 4th tab will be a link to the Qualtrics where you will submit your application. And the tab below that, which is a very important one, is the policies and procedures document. It's an 11-page document that covers just about everything you would need for the application process. So take time to read over that. If you have any further questions, by all means, feel free to contact me as well.
I do see another question asking if I will be working closely again with Court this year, and I have passed my torch on to our 2022 director of Parade Chief and Princess, and that is Maddie Moore. So she will now be overseeing Court, but she is awesome, and I'm so excited for her. And then there's also 2 assistant directors as well, Javon and Helen, that will also be assisting. So.
All right, one final question for Emily and Derek. Would you say that your campus involvement was the most important factor in getting you to become Princess and Chief, or was it a combination of a lot of different factors?
Derek, do you want me to take it or do you want to take it?
I'm thinking, buy me some time.
Okay, sounds good. I would say that your on-campus involvement, it definitely, at least for me, I feel got me to the interview. And it was in a diverse, relatively diverse areas of campus. Were my organizations. And so I think that definitely stood out from an application standpoint, getting to the interview. However, in the interview, it's how you talk about those experiences and how they've impacted yourself, your leadership, and the person that you are, and B, how it impacted others. And so I think that was a huge piece of it. So yes, your experience can get you through the door, but you have to get yourself through the door, the final door, I should say, and really explain and emphasize your heart and your love for Florida State, as well as for serving others, if that makes sense.
You said it perfectly. I would only add, just based on the question, I don't think, and Katie, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it's just campus involvement, right? But if you're involved outside of your campus as well, like just involved in the Tallahassee area as a whole, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Big Ben, you name it, community service, philanthropy, etc., mission trips, whatever you feel makes you, or whatever experiences mean the most to you, and if there's a way you can tie them back to our great Florida State University, I think that's definitely important. But as Emily mentioned, like all of those things are just titles on a piece of paper. They may get you attention, they may lead you to the interview, but what sets you apart is you. No one has your story. So it's the way that you can convey that in the interview. I'm sure there are more people with more, let's say, titles, positions, involvement than Emily and I, right, when we applied. But what made us stand out was how we delivered our story and that unique story. So that's what I would implore you all to do.
That was a great ad, Derek. Appreciate
the
that.
nail on the head in the involvement part. Absolutely. All right, we're going to finish this up with some questions just about the general application. We have one about, and the entire process. We have one, will the resume review be open to where we will get our resumes individually reviewed, or is it more of a workshop? So for that, it will be more of a workshop setting. So that meeting, once again, it is next Thursday. So Thursday, the 21st at 4 p.m. Eastern. The link to that Zoom meeting can be found in the policies and procedures document. And yeah, that's where we're at. Well, we want to take the time to just thank Emily and Derek. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. We really appreciate it. And then Dazi as well. Our time here was phenomenal. I will share my screen one last time. There we go. Yes, thank you guys, everyone in the audience, for coming. This recording will be available on the main FSU Alumni website under the Students tab, like I mentioned earlier. So for any friends who may have been busy tonight, or you want them to apply, tell them to check out this video. If there's any further questions that anyone has, please feel free to message me right here at this email. I will do my best to answer any questions that come my way. So for everyone who has attended, thank you so much and have a great night, and go Noles.
Thank you, guys.